Unbeaten in the Pizza Cup. Come and join us for a slice of Blue Monday. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, covering all things Ipswich Town since 2015. This is a midweek Q&A. Joining me in a wonderful bucket hat is Joe Fairs. How are you, mate? That is a rascal bit of gear you've got on.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah. So I'd made one of these previously, or when I say made, I cut it. I got my wife to make it, but this one I sent off for. It's a 15-16 home shirt which I sent off, and it's came back. So sort of a bit of quality control to maybe try and make some more for myself, but it looks a fair bit better, to be fair. So it's sort of put a dampener on my business plan.
Yeah, maybe you could go for like the cheaper market, like the Wish.
Yeah. Problem is the shirts you still have to pay for the shirts.
Yeah, that is very true. This obviously is a live Q&A show, so without the audience, it's just us having this chitter chatter. So let's dip into some comments early on, see who's watching. We've got Dan Connors is here, Charlie D, Michael Warner, good morning all from Brisbane. Michael, have you missed one of these yet? That's what I want to know. We've got a Guten Abend from Jim Elmy. And they're all sort of saying hello to each other, aren't they? Do we think so? We'll come into those for a few questions later on, Joe. But yeah, 24 hours on from the Arsenal under-21s game in the Pizza Cup Trophy. How do you reflect on it? It was another positive night for the club, wasn't it?
Yeah, another good win. Like I say, we've not had the best record in these games in recent years. I think we lost to Arsenal one year. We 2-0 up and managed to get pegged back and draw, and I think we lost on penalties to them, lost to West Ham previously. So it's a bit of an embarrassment for the club, really, that used to go toe-to-toe against these first teams, not even that long ago. But yeah, we just totally stopped them, really, didn't we? Scored an early goal. I don't think they touched the ball by the time we scored, and we just kept the pressure on. I think someone might be able to correct me, but I think other than the free kick which they had when Edmondson took the guy out sort of fairly cynically, I don't think they had a shot on goal, and even that was something that Ladke wasn't really too worried about. So we just, like I say, we just totally stopped them playing. We pressed them high. On another night we could have scored 5 or 6. Ladapo could have scored 5 or 6 on another night purely himself. So no, just a pretty routine win, which is very unlike us in these games, isn't it?
Yeah, it is an unusual feeling, but there's absolutely no reason why we can't go all the way in this competition. And are there any downsides of staying in the competition late?
I think it's only upsides, really, for me, in that because of the size squad we've got and the quality of the squad we've got, that there's enough games for the players in there, isn't there? Like, I know last night we played a few more senior players than normal, in that we had sort of Ladapo, Chaplin and Harness all play, but it was still 8 changes, wasn't it, from the weekend's game? And if you can make 8-9 changes look as comfortable as we did, I think it was 9 changes against Northampton. We beat them 6-0. So it's I'd say everyone knows what they're doing, everyone knows their role in the team, and we just look pretty switched on when we change. And I'd say this is only against fellow League 1 and League 2 teams, so we should be the best team in this. Like I say, and when you look at Sheffield Wednesday and maybe another option, but no team other than Sheffield Wednesday have got similar depth to what we've got in our squad. Yeah. So we should be getting to the final knock-ins of this. And like I say, we don't want to be in this tournament, but while we are in it, we should be looking to win it.
Yeah, especially because all being well this season, we're not going to get a sniff at Wembley in the league.
No, and also it does mean that if you get to the final there and you are in the playoffs, when you go to Wembley, it's not a new experience. So much jeopardy, there.
Isn't there?
Yeah, but you've sort of been there, and it's not the players' first time they're playing there where they want to get their families there. They want to walk around the pitch taking photos beforehand. It's something that they've done 6 weeks ago, and they just want to get on with it, and hopefully should help there. I know a few teams have done that way, and it has helped some and not helped others, but I don't see it's a downside having played at Wembley a few weeks before for players who've never played there.
Absolutely not. Let's dip back in and say hello to a few of the others. We've got Jake Saunders with us. Evening all. Romeo, good evening, everyone. David Bergin, hi guys, and how are you? I'm very well, Joe. I played 9 holes this evening. Played all right. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I've just been to see Peppa Pig's big day out at Ipswich Regent, so it's pretty exciting day, followed by a kebab.
Followed by a kebab. Talk me through
Well,
your kebab order, Joe.
well, actually, it wasn't a kebab. I sort of played that. It was from the Big Fat Olive, which is a Greek restaurant in town. So I just picked up a chicken skewers and flatbread and chips from there. So it wasn't quite as there, but it was good. It was good.
Not the sort of kebabs you have at the weekend.
No, it wasn't a dirty kebab.
Luke Thornley, Romeo asks, are we Wembley bound? By the sounds of it, Romeo, Joe's already sort of working out if we're going once or twice.
I'm panicking a bit because I've got a half marathon that morning in London, so I'm already working out how I'm going to get across from the finish line there to Wembley for the afternoon for the
Probably
final.
won't be running, will you? Or maybe a kebab in hand, jumping in an Uber or something like that. Andrus is with us. Mullet is with us. Charlie D can sense a Wembley day out. Frank says, good day from Ottawa. Good day to you. Jack Saunders, good reflection on McKenna that we still look organised when we make so many changes. That's been the big difference this year, hasn't it, in these two Papa John's Trophy matches? Because in the past, we've always said, cool, what a decent team we've put out, even though we're putting out reserves and youngsters and things like that. Like the squad has always looked half decent, but we've looked so disorganised and we've struggled to create chances, haven't we?
Yeah, well, we haven't been. Like I say, I think under Lambert we were quite organised, but it was quite a defensive system that we were quite organised in. Whereas sometimes you rely, and we relied on the quality of personnel at times there. But under Cook, I never felt we looked organised. But now with McKenna here, you know, every player knows their role, and you sort of listen to Vincent Young's sort of interview after the game, and it's, I love playing in this team, and you can just see every player knows what they're playing, and that doesn't matter if Vincent Young is playing in the Wes Burns role or the Janoy Donatian role. He can play both of them and can play both of them equally well because he knows exactly what's expected of him, whichever role he plays. And the balance in the midfield is really good, whether it's Don Ball and Cam Humphreys or Sam Morsey and Lee Evans, who was also at Peppa Pig's big day out earlier today. It's a
celeb spot
for you. And I don't know, they just seem to, there's partnerships developing all over the pitch, but also, I don't know, everyone just seems to know what they're doing, don't they?
They do indeed. Just on Kane Vincent-Young, Joe, is that the man you'd go with? Howard DK asks Edwards or KVY to replace Burns on Saturday. He'd go for Vincent-Young, especially as it's away from home.
Yeah, I'd agree with Howard on that and for the reasoning on it. I don't think Edwards did enough last night for me. I think he did okay and he did fine, but he didn't grab that opportunity by the scruff of the neck. And whilst there was a chance for him to show he did it, I don't think he did enough for me. And Plymouth is a tough game, isn't it? They're sort of one of the best home sides in the league, and I think you need to have a defender who's maybe got sort of one eye on the back door rather than just attacking there. And for me, it would be Vincent Young.
And he has played pretty well when he's had the chance this season, Vincent Young, hasn't he?
Yeah, I thought he was really good, especially all through pre-season. Probably one of our better players through pre-season. And I think he could argue he's a little bit unlucky that he hasn't played more games because Wes Burns hasn't been sort of pulling up trees as he was last year, and he missed a couple of games where I think we played Caden Jackson in one of them, didn't we? In that right wing back role at Burton, which Jackson did okay, but as a team performance wasn't our best. But then Vincent Young played there against Shrewsbury, should have had a early penalty and a red card within the first 5 minutes, did a lot of good from there. Even at the back end of last season, I remember he played away at Crewe, got an assist, and just, I don't know, he's just a very good player, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And touch wood, it looks like the injury problems are behind him, although obviously he's not having to play as much as he was when he was getting injured. We've got a Sunderland fan with us. We talked about Papa John's Trophy. They know all about going to Wembley, don't they, Sunderland fans? Jeff says, Sunderland fan here, you're going up this year, I hope. I sort of started to go for it with the accent and then realised I don't think I've got it quite nailed down. So
who's their new manager going to be, Sunderland? Have they announced anything on their new manager yet? But they're sitting quite pretty, aren't they, in the Championship at the moment?
Yeah, good on them. Sean says, Sheffield Wednesday have lost 2 of their first games in the Pizza Cup, and Jack says they lost to a much-changed Burton team last night. So do you think that might be signs that all is not well at Sheffield Wednesday, or just that they're just not prioritising it at all?
Well, I think it's probably an illustration that whilst they may have a little bit more quality, when you look at someone like Barry Bannon, for example, and they managed to sign Michael Smith, who's a really good striker, and Hickway, they've got some really, really good players, but I don't think they're as well organised as we are. I think we're a better team than they are. Well, they've probably got better players than us at the moment because they've still got a bit of a hangover from their championship side that came down, and they've gone big, and they're based in a real football hotbed in South Yorkshire. So you can pick up players like Smith, a Hickway from Rotherham, because they don't have to move house or do anything.
Yeah.
So I think they've probably got some better players than us, but I think we're a better organised team. And when you make the changes, like Jack said earlier, we just look so organised. Whoever plays, well, I don't think they looked particularly organised when they had their first 11 out. So I'd imagine their second 11 is less organised.
There we go. We've managed to get this far in, I think, unless you've mentioned him in passing, without talking about Freddie Ladapo, and he was kind of the headline act from last night, wasn't he, Joe? Actually, you did mention him because you said he could have scored 5 or 6 on another night. But let's get into the Ladapo predicament, I suppose you could call it. Dan Connors asks, Ladapo brings a lot to the team, even when not scoring. But if he can't get going in the league, what plan B would you go with? Is it Tyrese John Jules or is it Caden Jackson now?
Well, when Caden Jackson plays, we generally play Tyrese John Jules as well, and John Jules seems to spend more time in the middle than Jackson. Jackson seems to play on that wide striker role, doesn't he? When he's played there, sometimes a bit high, but he never plays just really central through the middle. But I like Ladapo. I like what he's done so far this season on a general basis, but he's got to start scoring soon. And I know he scored last night, but he had so many chances last night, and it was almost felt like the team were just trying to set him up. Like Chaplin a couple of times, Harness when they had better options, they tried to pass him the ball in areas, and he just got a lot of weak shots away. And I looked at the stats today, and people saying, "Oh, he's there to create, not just score." But when you look at his XG in the team, he's second, only behind Caden Jackson. Total shots per 90 minutes, he's second behind Connor Chaplin. And then when you look at expected assists and chances created, he's 10th or 9th or 10th in the team. So he's getting on the end of chances, but he's just not taking them. And whilst as a team we're scoring goals, at some point he's going to have to start scoring, or in these tight games against the bigger teams, you're not going to get away with him missing as many chances as he has done.
No, absolutely not. Even if we are defending really well, we're gonna need him for at least 10 goals, you'd say, wouldn't you, Joe?
Yes, if you're getting that 12 to 15 range, it's okay as long as Chaplin and Harness keep scoring. But you can't imagine that Chaplin is going to keep scoring every other shot he has all season, are you? And then on the flip side, you can't imagine that Ladapo's not going to score any. If he has another 30 shots, he's not going to score any.
Change of pace here. Alex Corbett says he played 18 this morning, was bloody awful. So my advice to you, Alex, aside from to not worry about it too much because it's a game to be enjoyed, is to contact Julian Hughes on Twitter, our very own Julian Hughes, who, if you send him clips of you playing, he'll give you some advice, video advice, and he's going to do that for me actually because I'm not playing as well as I have been. That's enough golf for the show. Let's hope that Ben hasn't just tuned in for that bit. Ashley Lewis asks, evening gents, Joe, are you still keeping tabs on the academy prospects? I know that you're not paying quite as much attention. You haven't been able to get to as many games as you'd like to, but he's hearing good things about Aldney Morgan. Have you heard anything about him, Joe?
Yeah, he's not someone I've seen a lot of, but he's now been promoted up into the under-19 squad with Northern Ireland, so he's obviously someone they highly rate in their setup. He scored his first goal for the under-18s at the weekend when we drew with Sheffield Wednesday. But he's, like I say, he's not someone I've seen a lot of, but he's starting games as a first-year scholar, had a few appearances under 16, so that's always what you need to look out for, who's actually playing the games, and the age groups are the ones playing. And if you're playing for the under 18s when you're still a first-year scholar, you're doing well. If you're playing for the under 23s at that age, you're doing really well. He's not there yet, so he's one that is obviously got some sort of is highly rated and is playing games. So we'll see how he goes. But sometimes when you see the sort of international appearances that they get, it does elevate players that maybe aren't aren't the ones that are actually kicking on at the club level, because you just hear so much more about them because they're playing international football. But that's not to say he isn't playing well, because I haven't seen him for us this year. But I'd just be a bit wary sometimes of looking at the internationals, unless they're in an England squad, which the competition is huge for.
And there was another debutant from the academy last night, wasn't there, Joe? Was that pleasing to see, or would you have liked to have seen more?
I would still like to see a couple more, but I guess it's good that we had Zizaba and Alexander got good minutes in the tie against Northampton, and it was Gerard Buarbo's first game last night, and he's a player that sort of came into the academy system really late, came in as an under-16, and sort of within a few weeks of signing, he was sort of leading the line on his own against Liverpool in the FA Youth Cup semi-final. And I think when Statman spoke to Adam Ate and Kieran Dyer, they basically said he'd never been to Portman Road Stadium before when he was there, and having to sort of turning up for the BT Sport cameras to play Liverpool there, and gave a decent account of himself. And again, a player he's still an under-18, playing pretty regularly now for the under-23s, and pushing on into the first team is good. But sometimes this means that a player hasn't signed a contract and they want him to sign one, so they give him a little taste of the first team action to try and put a bit of pressure on that way as well, to show that they rate him. So there's always a lot of moving parts going on behind the scenes on these players.
Absolutely, and I guess that's why one week you see one, and then the next week you see the other. There's always a plan going on, isn't there? Definitely these days. Just dipping back into the right wing back issue. Do you think it will be a wing back, Joe? Or could we maybe go back to a back four?
I think we've played a back four more than we've played a back three this season, but it's just it's still going to be a right-sided player, which I think Vincent Young can be, which I think Kyle Edwards can be, and which Caden Jackson has been. But I think it'll be between Vincent Young and Edwards, and I think they'll play that role that Wes Burns plays, which has been more of a winger than a wing back this season. But I guess whoever you play gives you slightly different qualities, which slightly adapts the role, doesn't it? Just because of how they naturally play.
We've got the trio of opinions here, because A says that he's with Howard and wants KVY. Mullet likes Edwards pure chaos. He'd be picking him to play down at Plymouth, and we even got a shout for Caden Jackson, because he did actually. I know it wasn't a great performance overall at Burton, but Jackson played well that night in that position, didn't he?
Yeah, it was the team that struggled there, but then did the team struggle because of he lacked a bit of the balance in there, but he still worked bloody hard. He was getting back and doing his defending, wasn't he, and getting up the other end of the pitch. So, yeah, I don't think there was any sort of faults of his performance in that game.
Okay, and this is a complete change of subject here. How realistic is a higher-up club trying to pry McKenna away? Is it just idle speculation, Joe? Are you at all worried?
Not at the moment. I'm not. I think that ultimately all he's doing is playing some really good football with the side with a huge budget in the league here, isn't he, at the moment? There are factors, like the fact he's previously been at Tottenham, previously been at Man United, worked with some world-class players in that time, clearly highly rated in the game, clearly highly intelligent, that are going to make him more attractive than somebody who's doing well in this league that maybe doesn't have that background. But when you look at the sort of clubs above us in the league, there's 44 teams in the Premier League and the Championship. I'd say probably the bottom 15 of them wouldn't be able to attract him from us, maybe even more than that. Bottom 16, 18 wouldn't be able to attract him from us. The top 10 wouldn't want to attract him from us. So you sort of narrowed it down in that middle range there to sort of maybe sort of Southampton at the top end, and I don't know, like a West Brom at the bottom end of that. And I think in that sort of 15, 20 clubs that could attract him and would want him, you'd guess probably half of them probably aren't stable enough to want to kick Ipswich aside to go there. It's not like Rob Edwards going from Forest Green to Watford, where he's probably times his salary by 10 to go there. I'm sure McKenna's probably earning really good money here. It'd have taken a really good offer for him to leave Man United to come here. So I'm not worried at the moment. I'm sure at some point he's going to be looked at by bigger clubs, maybe when we're in the Championship and a stable club, maybe Brighton have sort of got a bit ahead there, but a West Ham or a Southampton or a team like that in that echelon, if we were sort of punching above our weight in the Championship but struggling to get out of that league, then I think that would be the time. But I don't think there's any realistic risk at the moment of it happening.
No, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Now, Joe, we've managed to do 20 minutes of this show without plugging our live show, which is coming up. Really excited about that one. It's a location that you know very well as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Bobby Robson suite. The only issue I've got is that they've said that the diners there have to leave between the game finishing and the show starting. So I think that feels like it's been very aimed at me rather than anyone else in that specific terms and conditions. But yeah, something we're really looking forward to. I don't know if Richard announced it on here, but we had it all provisionally booked, ready to go, and then it was going to be after the Derby game, and then Sky moved the Derby game to the Friday night. So we then had to frantically hope that the club didn't want us to honour our date, and the club were really good about it and said, no, it's fine. Obviously, we're going away. So we it's now after the Cheltenham game, isn't it? Which is, tell me the date, Mikey. I don't know it.
I think it's the 12th of November, Joe.
12th of November.
Yeah.
So I think are you going to be
Saturday,
there?
it's the Cheltenham game. I'm going to be there. I fly out to Qatar 2 days later, but
yeah, I think we can nearly all make it. I think most of the team will be there, and it'll be a really good night. We did the one in the Curve Bar a few years ago, and then obviously we've had a little thing called COVID and a pandemic hit since then, which has sort of scuppered any future plans. But no, it'd be great to get everyone out there. I think tickets are selling well already. I know a lot of the guys in our Telegram are coming along, so it's sort of a real good community. So yeah, it's just a case of just getting everyone there, selling out our tickets, everyone there, and having that couple of beers and a couple of beers afterwards, and just having a good chat about all things Ipswich Town.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night. So yeah, if you would like to join us and buy a ticket, or buy a ticket for a friend or a family member, if you visit our website bluemonday.itfc.co.uk, and then you should see this come up on your screen for those of you watching. Blue Monday live from Portman Road. Tickets on sale now. Click here to purchase. So yeah, hope to see as many of you there as possible. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be available as a podcast afterwards. We appreciate not everyone's going to be able to make it, but yeah, for those of you that are coming, we look forward to meeting you. Got our first super sticker of the night. It's David Bergin.
Is that man?
What a man! Thank you very much,
I think
David.
he mentioned he's hoping to be over in April for a game, so
yeah, it'd be great to meet.
We
David.
will see him, and we'll all owe David a beer for his generosity.
Absolutely. Michael Warner asks, is the live show going to be shown online? I think it's unlikely that it's going to be shown live on YouTube. I think logistically that's going to be very difficult. I think I'll leave it to Rich to explain whether there's going to be video of it or not, because it's obviously slightly different to our usual setup. But there'll definitely be.
Last time, wasn't it? We didn't record it and then we released it as a podcast, didn't we? So
yeah,
I think at the very least we'll be releasing it as a podcast.
Nick Muller's joined us. He says, "Nice hat, Joe." Shame about the Marcus Evans, really, isn't it?
Look at that.
Let's go back into the Ladapo conversation. He says he's been involved in so many goals. At least he doesn't hide when things aren't going well, and it's a good sign that he gets so many chances, isn't it?
Yeah.
And AD Croucher says, amazing how he responded to the North Stand chance by scoring.
Yeah, I don't know what people thought about the chance on that, but I was down in the South Stand, and when it was the if Ladapo scores are on the pitch chant, I was thinking this is not helpful to him, because it wasn't a particularly raucous atmosphere. You could hear everything. Like, I was at the very back row of the South Stand low and could hear it all clearly, and it got to a bit of a sort of joke situation, really. But then it sort of picked up. It was like, "We love you, Freddie, we do," and then all the other songs about Ladapo, and so it sort of I think it just about got recovered, and then Ladapo missed another couple of chances there, and it sort of was. You could tell he was sort of getting frustrated, but then as Buabo was standing on the pitch ready to come on for him, he scored with what proved to be his final touch. And had he not scored that would have been his final touch that he hadn't scored. And I think maybe it wouldn't have gone down as well as it did in the end, if that makes sense. I think that they walked a tightrope, but I don't think it was particularly helpful personally.
No.
So we'll see. But yeah, he keeps getting involved. He keeps trying to do the right things. But like I say, we worked really hard to try and sign George Hurst in the summer, and he got away. They went after Will Keane, and I think they thought they were quite close to him, but didn't make it. And then we ended up with sort of Ghassan Ahadmi, who had a good game against us previously, but isn't in the same ballpark as George Hurst or Will Keane, is he? And if you're trying to sign one of those players right up to the end of the window, that's all right from the start of the window right till the end of the window. We obviously wanted another more senior option up front. So unless Ladapo is going to get us 10 goals probably by January, you'd imagine we're going to be back in the market for another senior striker unless Ghassan Ahadmi has really impressed people and has done more than you'd expect him to. But the ball is in Ladapo's court, isn't it? For him to try and score goals and make himself undroppable. But I don't know. It's just frustrating because he is getting a lot of chances. He is playing well generally. He's not had a couple of great games, but you can't say as a striker in the team if you're just going to be a 6 or 7 out of 10 every week and not score any goals, are you? You're not going to survive, and he knows that. We know that, and a lot of people sort of want to talk up his contribution. And while the contribution is fine, it's not a contribution that's going to keep you in the team, which is why Jackson's played more games recently and why John Jules has played up front.
Indeed, the other goal scorer last night, Joe, hasn't started in the league yet, as far as I'm aware. That's Don Ball. Michael Warner asked, does he ever give the ball away? We're so lucky to have him. How long before he starts, even as part of the back three? Yeah. Could you see him getting a league game fairly soon, Joe?
It's difficult because I think Morsey and Evans have been so good, haven't they? And Morsey is going to play every game when he's fit. Evan, I don't know what you thought when the season started. I expected it to be to Morsey and Ball as our central two.
I thought it would be Morsey and Ball. But whilst Evans was given the chance at the start, Ball was injured, wasn't he? And Evans has been fantastic.
Yeah, Evans has taken a chance with both hands, hasn't he? And that's what you've got to do when you're in a really competitive squad. When you get a chance, you've got to make sure you take it. And I think that's the difference. Like I say, what we were just talking about, Ladapo there, he's had the chances and he hasn't taken it. But fortunately for him, he hasn't really got people sort of a similar style pushing him in his position, where if Lee Evans was a 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, Don Ball would be in the team by now, because when he's played, he's looked really good. And I thought he was really good again last night. I made him my man of the match. It was his ball for Ladapo's goal. He scored one. He had another shot well saved by the keeper. As Michael said, he doesn't really give the ball away. I think he did a couple of times in the last 5 minutes, but that was the first time I noticed him doing it. He plays sort of really interesting pass in that everyone's looking one way and he sort of manages to sort of play the ball the other way and keep it moving there. And he's very, very mobile as well as a player. Big, good size, good strength. No, he looks a really good player. And I think Lee Evans is going to want to hold on to that place in the team, because I think if he drops out of the team, he's not going to get it back very quickly when you see how Don Ball's played.
Absolutely. But yeah, definitely worse problems to have. We've had a bit of a boo-boo here, Joe.
I saw that comment.
Tony Mowbray is,
and just
of course, the Sunderland manager. We've discussed that. I believe he might have worn one of those shirts behind you at some point, Joe. That
yes, he did.
That one above your right shoulder.
Oh, no, it's always backwards on the mirror.
Flips it over, doesn't it?
Yeah, Mogger, great guy, and they played some nice stuff as well. I actually saw his first game in charge. I think it was on Sky, and yeah, he's a really good manager. Really adaptable and sort of versatile manager with his styles, and I think he'll be a really good appointment there. So apologies for forgetting that, and good luck to Mogger up there.
Absolutely, good luck, Mogger. Tommy Lane, I think the only piece of summer business will depend entirely on Luco's fitness come January. I think he might mean January business. Feel like we may be missing someone behind the striker on the bench. We don't have. Obviously, we've lost to Luco. He's quite a key finisher, wasn't he, Joe? First of all, are we missing him, do you think? And if he isn't fit in January, will we look to replace him?
I think it's the type of player he is, isn't he? That he's someone that can come on and be so comfortable on the ball and really help you retain possession in tight areas where, as good as Chaplin and Harness have been, and I say they've got 11 goals between them this season, so you're not going to find me criticising them, but they are players that like to make things happen. And sometimes when you're trying to protect a lead, you want someone who can just get on the ball rather than someone who's trying to turn it around the corner and flick it past someone, do stuff all the time. You just want someone to get the ball, hold it up, slow it down and move it on. And that's what Luca is very good at. Maybe a player like that is someone we not that we really played a style on Saturday that allowed ourselves to do that. But yeah, I think we do miss a player like that, and it's going to be very hard to replace him. So we just have to hope he is back fit there, because trying to find a player of that quality who can come in is going to be very difficult.
Rich says we're TBC on the audio video for the live event, and Michael says maybe Joe can have a GoPro on his hat for it.
Yeah, I'll make sure I turn it off when the show finishes rather than follow me into town.
So are you going to be in shirt and tie, Joe, for the live show? Presumably, because you'll have been in the Bobby Robson suite all day.
No, it's more casual there. To be fair, it's just no football shirts, ripped jeans, or trainers. So I'll be
okay.
fine.
So bucket hats are allowed.
I don't know about whether they're allowed in there, but I'm sure they are. Bucket hats and high vis vests.
Indeed. Mullet says they're perfect for a northern away days. That hat too. It needs to be a flat cap, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it keeps the rain off you, doesn't it? Like in Manchester, which is always there.
My mum's watching. Old Jude, hi son from Shropshire. She's enjoying her. Well, judging by the spelling, she's enjoying her holiday. Romeo says, didn't like the North Stand chanting. Ladapo showed a lot of character to rise above it. Nice reaction after he scored. Yeah, it was the only good ending that could have happened.
Yeah,
we were really close to not getting it, weren't we?
I think it ended up okay, but I think it was silly and not helpful, but it ended up okay.
Jules. So Jules is talking about Ian Westlake here, who's just been absolutely fantastic on iFollow this season. You're at most of the games, aren't you, Joe? You probably haven't heard much of him, but yeah, he's been fantastic. He says Arsenal dropped their right back into midfield, and Westlake was saying that's a tactic you hardly see, which nullified us for 20 minutes. After McKenna saw this, is it something he might try next season? It's a little bit of like a Man City thing, isn't it? Could you maybe see Donacien moving into midfield at times?
I think maybe if you had Vincent Young there, to be honest, I think it might work better. I don't think Donacien's got the sort of passing range and sort of all-round game to move into midfield, where I think Vincent Young could sit into that holding midfield role and play quite well there. But no, I thought the right back was impressive. Very early on, he made Marcus Harness look very silly when he tried to press him one side just down on the touchline. And yeah, he looked a really, really quality player, that one.
Indeed. Dan Connors says Morsley's on 3 yellows already, so not far off a 1-match suspension. That's not as much a worry now we have Ball, is it?
No, it's not. And especially if we can get Kamara fit as well. Humphreys, he hasn't been mentioned, but he was superb again last night.
Yeah, we will see. And Michael Warner says Ball played really well with Humphreys. We haven't really spoken about him yet, but another really assured performance from him. From the little glimpses that I've seen, he looks a little bit in the mould of Andre Dazelle, Joe. Is that a fair comparison?
I think he's just a lot more athletic, isn't he? He gets up and down the pitch there, but he likes to get on the ball and pass it, where Dazelle is a better passer than most players you'll see. But there's just a couple of times where he just uses his body just to drop shoulders, and the ball's rolled into him from the keeper, and there's a player right on his back, and he doesn't even just touch the ball. He just lets it roll past him, drops his shoulder, goes round him, and just starts playing. It's just that absolute, like you saw on the Arsenal team, that just supreme confidence to just keep trying things and keep wanting the ball when you're under a load of pressure, wins the ball back, really combative, uses the ball well. Yeah, he's a special player. So it's nice to see a bit more of him if we get the chance.
Absolutely. And yeah, please do keep getting these comments in, these questions in. We'll stay live for as long as there's plenty of questions coming in. AD Crouch is not worried about McKenna going anywhere. He said that he's here to do a job. McKenna's at the wheel. Feel good is just surely he is enjoying the job, Joe, ultimately, and he's got money to spend and a team that he can really mould. Even if the club did come in, do you think he'd maybe decide against going?
It's going to have to take an exceptional offer to get him away from what he's got here, isn't it? It's not and I'd imagine there's probably an exceptional amount of compensation to pay as well. I can't imagine there's something in there that he can go cheaply, but he's moved his family down here. His kids have started school down here. He's committed to this job 100%. Ipswich have committed to Kieran McKenna 100%, and it's going to take a brilliant offer for him to go. Obviously, those brilliant offers do exist, but I don't think they're going to exist at the time when he hasn't actually got us out of this league. I think he's got to prove something, because the calibre of clubs that would be able to get him away from us are few and far between, and they're going to want more than just playing good football in League One, aren't they?
Indeed. Sean Calvert follows up on the Arsenal right back thing. He says it was Sweet who moved into midfield to pick up a number 10, and they pushed players wide and high to pin KV Wine Davis. It's obviously smart coaching from the Arsenal coaches. Exactly what you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think they managed to pin Davis particularly well. I thought he was really good again. I think he's improving every game. He's looking really, really good. You can see why we spent £1 million on him, can't you? In the summer now, it seemed a lot of money at the time, but he looks a class act.
Yeah, I think that somebody's already made the comparison between him and Aaron Cresswell. And
yeah, that seems the most obvious one, doesn't it? They play very similar style.
But it's sort of later Cresswell, isn't it? It's not. He doesn't look as raw as Cresswell did when he came in. He already looks very. Obviously, he's got the experience of playing for Leeds, hasn't he, and everything. But yeah,
he's in League One as well, not the Championship.
Yeah, that is a fair comment. Jules says, when you're comparing a top 6 Premier League team of youngsters, Humphrey stood out as good as any of them. Thought the standout player was Matt Smith for them.
Yeah, Smith was good, wasn't he? Just moves the ball, keeps it moving, gets on the ball, and just ticks it over all game. I thought the other, I think, was he 50, was he? Or I think 55 played well, 50 and 55 played well, and that Sweet as well was good. But I'd sort of forgotten all their names by the time the sort of game ended. I sort of referred to my team sheet a few times. But when he got to number 93, who was the fourth double-barreled name in the team, it's like you haven't got a hope of remembering these names.
And what do you think of Arsenal's blackout kit, Joe? As good as ours?
Yeah, no, it was a really nice kit, wasn't it? The only thing that not confused me, but at the other end, like Václav Hladky wearing the dark green goalkeeper kit with dark green shorts and dark green socks against black and black. He should have worn the other one, to be fair. So the referees had a shocker with his kit choice there.
Yeah, I think didn't Walton wear his green one against somebody? Who was it that we last played in midweek?
Bristol Rovers?
No, I don't think it was Bristol Rovers. Maybe it was. There was definitely a game where he was. Maybe it was the Saturday game. Where he was wearing a kit that was the same green kit and it clashed with the opposition. But yeah, it's not come to me, so apologies for that. Charlie D, not a football question. What is next to happen around the ground and the club? We've had a new TV screen, etc. What else do we need?
Well, there's been a big investment made up at the training ground. Like we're doing a job on Playford Road, and I'm sort of looking over sort of the fence and what was this sort of bare field, which was previously where sort of the under-18s pitch was around there, had been sort of like totally stripped down. A massive amount of irrigation and the amount of money they must have spent on this bit of land, it's now looking lush. So I'd imagine the next thing is going to be the first team moving across from the Bent Lane side to the Playford Road side, and some sort of serious infrastructure spending up there on that.
Exciting stuff. All of the infrastructure, getting that in place. Mullet says he'd like to see safe standing. Don't think is there anyone in the Championship that's got safe standing in place yet? Because a lot of the Premier League clubs do now.
A lot of League One. I know that Shrewsbury have it in League One, don't they?
Okay. But is that something you could see happening, or is it just not something that would be prioritised, Joe?
I'm not sure that, because the only place you put it is the North Stand lower. And I'm sure somebody mentioned once before that the way the steps are set up, that you'd have to almost like totally reset the concrete base there to get more seats in there, or you wouldn't really get many more than what you've got in there currently. You might only get an extra like 300 or something like that, which for the cost of changing it isn't going to be worth it. So I don't think it's something that's imminent.
Okay, so it won't be done for safety reasons then.
No, it would just be for commercial reasons if we can.
Just going back into Leif Davis, A says he's very good going forward, but some really rash challenges when defending. And Dan Connors adds he commits more fouls per 90 than anyone else in the squad. Is that an area of his game that he maybe needs to look at, Joe, or are you happy to see someone that's quite blood and thunder?
I think he could be a member of the current cabinet, because he's quite handsy, isn't he, when he defends? So he's someone that just likes to get his hands on people's shirts and pulls and generally gets away with it there, but it's I think it's just something you learn to push how much you can get away with. You take the fouls. He hasn't really had any. I'm sure Dan will correct, but I don't think he's been booked more than a couple of times as well. So whilst he's fouling, he's just doing ones he can get away with more.
Michael Warner says Davis always seems to be limping after about an hour. Same with Ball at the end of the game. Not fully fit, or is it just how they walk, or is it they're just giving everything?
Well, Davis does seem to pick up an injury every single game, doesn't he? In that he's always, whenever he does something which is a big physical exertion, he always seems to sort of struggle for the next couple of minutes after that. So I don't know whether it's a case of not being fully fit or whether he just is more injury prone. That's why he's not played as many games in his career. It's hard to tell, isn't it? But he's always struggling a bit with injuries, it seems. Ball, I think he's only played twice, and the first time he had a dead leg after 2 minutes, so that was why he was limping at 90. But I think that is a little bit just his natural gait.
Okay. Look, Saucepan says Davis was brought off at the weekend before he was going to get sent off. He says, it's a good point. We're not good at defending from the fouls. We're still not particularly good at defending set pieces. Dan Connors says Davis is on 3 yellows, same as Morsey. But yeah, Greg Lee will be back by the time that happens. And I think we're all quite excited about seeing Greg Lee have a run of games, aren't we, Joe?
Yeah, he's been really good for us, hasn't he? And he's played a part in nearly every game so far this season, whether it's sort of from the starting 11 or off the bench. He's someone that's, I say, when we looked at the left back spot last year, when you had sort of Coulson not really playing well, Penny not really being up to it, Bailey Clements having a few games and struggling by the end of that, Vincent Young playing there, Donatian playing there, Burgess starting the games there, Dominic Thompson there, who didn't really do enough for me. And then we've signed Greg Lee and Leif Davis. Yeah, admittedly, Leif Davis was £1 million, but Greg Lee was a free transfer from Morecambe, and it feels like we've got two really, really good left backs there.
Yeah, definitely a really strong position for us. We'll talk about England in a little bit, Joe, because that's a position that England aren't looking particularly strong at the moment. In other football news, thoughts on Paul Warne to Derby? I can't say that I've noticed that one. Maybe that broke when I was playing golf. Is that a rumour, Joe, or has that happened?
Well, Liam Rosenior is no longer their interim manager. He has been, I don't know whether he's been sacked, but he's still at the club. So he's no longer their interim manager. It's been announced, and the rumor is that that Paul Warne is you'd imagine if Liam Rosenior has been sort of effectively removed from his position as interim manager, they wouldn't be doing that unless they had someone else lined up instantly. You can't imagine they'd just do that for no reason, because if he's going back onto the coaching staff, he'd probably be taking the team at the weekend anyway. So you'd imagine someone is coming, and the John Percy's, who's very well connected at Derby, has picked it up. A few other of the Midlands journals have picked up that it's going to be Paul Warne. So yeah, interesting. I think the owners were always going to get their new man in, because they'd left Liam Rosenior as interim for a sort of a huge amount of time. They obviously didn't want him to be their manager, and they were just sort of giving him enough rope to hang himself with, it seems. But no, Paul Warne, good appointment. I'd rather him have stayed out of League One, because he's got a great record at this league. Derby got a decent squad, so yeah, I'd rather him not be their manager if possible, but we'll see.
Is it a completely different change in style? Because Liam Rossini is quite a modern coach, isn't he? And Paul Warne is more sort of meet and drink League One football.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that as well. There's like Liam Rossini seems a very technical coach, doesn't he? And sort of very competent. But then Warne's very emotionally intelligent, isn't he? When you see him talk, and there's been a really good podcast series on BBC called The Moment of Truth, where it's followed Paul Warne and Carl Robinson for the last sort of 4 months of last season, and sort of an episode each week narrated by James Nesbitt. Really, really, really good listening if anyone hasn't listened to that. But Paul Warne comes just across as just the nicest bloke, and just really, really such a nice guy. But obviously gets his players running through brick walls for him. So he'll be a dangerous manager to have in this league.
Yeah, a nice guy for a Norwich fan. James Cottam, how have the under-23s looked this season under McGreal? Have you seen much of them, Joe?
No, I've sort of been relying on Sean, who's in the comments, who's been giving me some brilliantly detailed reports on it. And from all accounts, that we're playing a very similar style to the first team. We're playing well, scoring goals. There's a few players are standing out in there, and yeah, it's just been a we've sort of carried on from last season where we had a really good year. But no, I can't add much more than that. Sorry.
Alex Corbett says that old cliche, our left back situation is like buses. I really like both of our current options, which does bring me. We'll just chat about England a little bit as this is an international break, Joe. Are you particularly interested in these? These are indeed the last England matches before the World Cup, aren't they? And what needs to be done between now and the World Cup for England to have a decent chance of getting somewhere in the World Cup?
I guess the key thing you've got to work out is probably who's going to play and what shape you're going to have in the central midfield, because it's been, you'd say Declan Rice is nailed on to start there, and we generally have been playing the 3-4-3. So, but I don't think you can start Calvin Phillips. He hasn't got, well, he's not fit, is he? At all for a start. He wasn't fit all last season. When he has been fit, he hasn't really got going at Man City at all this year. So it leaves you sort of with Jude Bellingham, or Jordan Henderson or James Ward-Prowse. But I'd like to see Jude Bellingham get that chance alongside Declan Rice. I think they'd be a really good pairing, but I could probably imagine it's probably going to end up being Jordan Henderson for what he can give you there. And it does lend yourself to set yourself up more defensively, doesn't it? Free at the back, you'd imagine it's going to be, because I don't think you can trust any of John Stones, Eric Dyer, Harry Maguire. I don't think you can trust any of them to play as a two. So I think you're going to end up with a three there, and I think you're going to end up with Declan Rice.
Probably going to be Walker in that back three as well, isn't it?
Yeah, probably Walker on the right side of that, Stones in the middle, and Maguire on the left. I think it's been our best team for a long time with England.
Yeah,
left back, Luke Shaw's not playing well at all, is he? If he's even
playing, Chilwell's probably not going to play much. Probably not going to be playing.
Just come back into it there. You've got a lot of options at right back, but so I wonder whether you even. I wouldn't be too adverse to seeing Declan Rice and Reece James sitting in the centre of midfield there. I think Reece James could play that role. He plays more centrally sometimes for Chelsea. He gives you a little bit more in there than Jordan Henderson, while maybe not losing the sort of defensive capabilities that he's got, but we'll see.
Mike Warner says someone has to teach Alexander Arnold how to defend. Don't think he's going to get a look in.
No, and I think the team and the squad that Southgate's put together has overperformed for the last sort of two tournaments. People talk about easy groups, but it's still not easy to get out of these groups and win stages and win knockout games. So we'll see how it goes. But I think you just got to trust him to go with players and a similar system to what we've done in previous tournaments. And international teams don't go out and blitz the opposition anymore, do they? It's all very cagey there. But we'll see. We've got some good players. It's just hoping that we can go into it with Harry Kane fit, Declan Rice fit, Jack Grealish fit, Phil Foden, Mason Mount. These guys, you want them all to be fit.
Yeah. And hopefully one or two of them will come into a little bit of form between now and then as well. So that's enough England stuff. Charlie D asked, would we like an ITFC fly on the wall documentary like the Wrexham one, but better? As interesting as I find these documentaries, I think I'd rather wait until it's an all or nothing one, Joe, when we're flying high in the Premier League in a few years.
Yeah, that'd be better, wouldn't it? They're a lot more slicker produced there as well. They're more puff pieces for the club rather than gritty documentaries, aren't they? But no, I think it's one of those ones that, in a way, you'd love to see it, but in another way, it's just too far behind the curtain, isn't it?
Definitely. And A says prefer to keep as low profile as possible. Don't want to highlight how good Kieran McKenna is.
Especially when you see last time Mark Ashton was on TV in a programme called The Office, where he played a guy called David Brent.
Brilliant. Okay. Right, let's. There was an England question in there. Trippier, Trent, or Reece James. For me, it's probably Reece James on the right side and Trippier at the left at the moment.
Yeah, Reece James, I think, is the best of those three. But Trippier's been good, hasn't he, for Newcastle, and then got injured and missed a few games. But no, Reece James, for me, is our best right back.
Indeed. Charlie D says Ashton turned one down. So is there maybe rumours that...
I'm sure there's a lot of clubs asking a lot of these things. Like I say, some of these are good. I think just watched the Academy programme with Crystal Palace, which has been on Channel 4. That's been really good. And Palace have come out of that looking really good. But... I say when you see the Sunderland one, the other ones of clubs in this league, and you just think, you're just making yourself look stupid.
Indeed. How many times have we now heard that Wilfried Zaha soundbite? It's a dog-eat-dog world. in elite football. It's like he did a sit-down interview for maybe 3 minutes, and they've just had to keep using that same quote every single time.
It's in the sort of opening of the programme, isn't it, as well? So.
Yeah. But no, really enjoyable documentary. Have you read any good football books recently, Joe, or any other football documentaries? I really enjoyed the Arsenal All or Nothing. I thought that was probably the best of the
I've never got through all the All or Nothings. I just find them, I enjoy them, and I like the Man City one with Pep and that, but I just find them just too polished almost now. I think because I watched a lot of American sports, I'm used to seeing sort of like the Hard Knocks and the NFL All or Nothings, that they just follow such a sort of formula that it's just, they just don't feel that real. Like the very first All or Nothing was a NFL one, LA Rams, where the head coach is sacked mid-season, which doesn't really happen in the NFL much, and they're in the meeting where he goes in to tell the whole squad, wow, I've just been fired, and he, like, there's players in tears. He looks like he's sort of choking it back, and you just think, you're not going to get this access in a documentary about that. When Mourinho was sacked at Tottenham, you're not going to get him going and telling the squad he's just been sacked, and the sort of real raw emotional reaction from it. So no,
the only good one in the Tottenham one was the Danny Rose team meeting with Jose Mourinho, where you actually saw him throwing a bit of a wobbly about not getting a chance at left back, and Mourinho basically just saying, "Get on with it."
Yeah, but books wise, I've sort of read a few. A guy called Ryan Baldy, and a book called The Next Big Thing, which is about academy football, sort of predictably, but no, really good. Sort of they're following on from guys like Every Boy's Dream and the Michael Calvin one. I can't remember which that was called, which had the TV program made at BT Sport. But that was really good. But like I say, I read Dominic Ball's book, as Romeo's just mentioned there, and that's a good read there. Kieran McKenna gets a mention at the start of that as his coach. Charity. And you find out how many times that Dominic Ball and Ipswich Town sort of paths crossed previously, where his older brother, who's signed for Norwich, was with Ipswich for quite a while, and then when he was released from Watford, he had 5 trials, and one of which was at Ipswich, who offered him a deal. And then when he went to Tottenham, Brian Klug was there as his academy manager, and Kieran McKenna was there, and they're sort of just back and forth. There's so many sort of times where their paths crossed with Ipswich, so it's sort of good that, or interesting that he signed now after sort of the times when that happened.
Okay, so reliable Twitter source saying Warren to Derby is now all but done.
Was that Henry Armstrong, Rich, that posted that?
Well, it asked if it's EFL Hub. Michael Warner recommends get the John Percy is who's going with it. So.
I'd mentioned that earlier on the stream.
Okay. Michael Warner, Get the Sheep Off the Pitch. It's a book about non-league football. There you go. There's a
couple of good ones by Harry Pearson. Really old book called The Far Corner, which is about sort of football in the North East, and I think he's done another one about the South West as well, but I can't be sure.
Okay. So one final plug from us. There's going to be, of course, a pre-match show ahead of the Plymouth game, which is Sunday. Don't forget, that's live on Sky. Is it a 12:30 kickoff, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's 12:30.
I think there's over 1,000 Ipswich fans travelling down there anyway, which is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, the pre-match show, I think it's with Rich and Seb. It's not going to be live this time, but it will be available on Friday for those of you that want to get the lowdown on Plymouth and just enjoy Rich and Seb's friendly banter. So, Joe, any last words from you?
Well, I just think, as you just mentioned there, what an unbelievable turnout that is. Over 1,000 fans going down to Plymouth on a Sunday 12:30 kickoff for a game that's on Sky. Sort of just shows what an incredible fan base we've got.
Absolutely. One last book recommendation: Carl Fuller's Town on the Telly book, which works perfectly ahead of Sunday, doesn't it? Because we're live on Sky. When was the last time we were live on Sky, Joe? Was there one game last season? Was it Rotherham away?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I
think we've only won 3 out of our last 35 on Sky. I've also ordered my book from Carl. Maybe we'll get Carl on the pod to talk about his book. So
that would be good.
Some more work to do on that. But no, I'm sure that'll be a really good book, forward by Matty Holland, and I'm sure there'll be some great stories in there. But yeah, I've ordered mine as well. And if you want to order it, just search Carl out on Twitter, the fuller flavour.
Definitely. And Romeo says Sunday is the Paul Mariner derby. Of course it is. Looking forward to that one, Joe. How are your feelings ahead of that one? Are you feeling a little bit more confident than you normally would be for a Sky game away at a playoff rival, or are you still maybe that Sheffield Wednesday result sort of knocked a bit of stuffing out of us?
Sky games just don't bother me personally. I just think that it's just another game. It doesn't add anything or take anything away from what I'm thinking about it. I think Plymouth are a good side, but I don't think there's many teams that are better than us in this league, and we'll go there. We'll impose ourselves on them and see how we get on. And I'd be surprised if we lose, but if we do, we do. We'll still probably be in the top 2 if we do, but it just means we then got to come back and beat Portsmouth. But no, I fully expect us to go out there and try and win that game, and I'd back us to every day of the week.
Great stuff, Joe. Thank you very much for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and look out for the Plymouth pre-match show on Friday. Thanks everyone for watching. Upper Town.